Hey everyone, welcome to our Mixed Media Moods for November. It is a monthly collaboration between DeeDee Catron and myself where we create a mood board and then make projects based on that mood board. So this is the mood board for this month. I made this one and to be completely honest, I was not very inspired by it. So I originally made this ATC covered in pieces of lace that I got from my friend Debbie, and what I'm making here was supposed to be a backer for that, but there's a lot of twists and turns throughout this whole process. I was not feeling it, and in the end I don't end up using the lace ATC at all, and this piece here becomes my project. So I'm just taking some vintage book text and applying it with some Collage matte and kind of like roughing up the edges and ripping them and tearing them and bending them. And I took inspiration from the vintage books that are in the picture on the mood board. And then I also got these bits of like wood grain kind of patterned paper from my friend Debbie. And I'm just gonna use a distress tool to kind of like rough up those edges, and then you can see the white of the paper, so I'm going to take a little vintage photo and a little bit of ground espresso distress ink to kind of mask those white edges there. And I'm just going to put them down. I originally wanted them to peek out from underneath my lace ATC piece, so that's why I'm placing them how they are and why you see me often putting that lace piece on top. And then I'm doing a little bit of stamping with Row of Numbers by Viva Las Vegas Stamps and the Ground Espresso ink, and then I'm going to adhere my wood grain pieces and some extra scraps of the vintage book paper with that Collage matte. No, it's not collage. Yeah, it is Collage matte. This whole thing was just, it wasn't coming together. You know, sometimes that happens. And when I finally let go is when it finally started to come together. So at this point, I am just still trying to adhere my pieces so they're going to stick out from underneath that lace piece, basically. They're the lace ATC, basically. And I'm looking at it, and I'm not feeling it, and I'm trying to think about how I can make it work. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to add some more of these kind of like squinched up bits that are going to stick out, because I really like the way that looks when the paper's like torn and folded over on itself. And then there's some white of the cardstock base showing, so I'm just going to use some distress ink to obscure that. And then here's where I decided to scrap the lace ATC and just work on this as my piece. So I'm taking a old tea bag that I dried the tea and then like took the tea out of it and opened up the bag, and also some circle drywall tape. I used the tea bag because there's a picture of coffee in the mood board, so tea, coffee, you know. And then I was going to color it with some coffee, but my instant coffee that I like to use got moldy, so I used like regular coffee and it was not showing up at all, so I used some of that ground espresso. And then I'm bringing in some Bratwurst Brown Lindy's Magical Shakers, and it has like a whole bunch of different colors in it, and it kind of showed up red, which I wasn't really feeling. And then I thought, well, I'll add a pop of color anyway, so I got out the Tibetan Poppy Teal, which is a Lindy's Magicals, and I'm just going to apply that with my paintbrush, and then I'm going to dry it. And then I thought I'd do a little loose sketching of a house, because there's a house, a picture of a house in the mood board, and I thought I was going to use a brown watercolor pencil, and then I thought I'd just use a regular pencil. And then I'm getting out some Dina Wakley Media gesso and a palette knife to scrape over the top, because I wasn't really at all liking the way it was looking, so I thought I'd bring everything together with some gesso and try to cover up some of the parts that I didn't really necessarily like. And at this point, I was just really frustrated with the whole thing, but I was determined to keep pushing forward. So then I thought I'd get out some copper tinsel embossing powder by Ranger and some gold by Recollections, which is a Michaels brand. And I'm just going to sprinkle that into my wet gesso. And I'm just using my fingers to sprinkle that in several spots around my piece. And then I'm going to heat it with my heat gun. And in order for the embossing powder to melt, it has to get really hot, and it makes the gesso bubble as well, which I wasn't really upset about because I really liked the way that looked, like the texture of the bubbles in the gesso. And then I didn't like the embossing powder, so I'm trying to cover it up a little bit with the gesso. I mean, this whole thing was a giant calamity, in my opinion. You know, it goes like that sometimes. So then I'm going to apply a little bit more of that ground espresso distress ink to add some little more dark areas into the piece. And then I thought I'd get out my Stabilo Marxol black water soluble pencil and add some real dark areas. But my gesso wasn't really completely dry and it was turning like a little bit gray. But I just scribbled that pencil around and then activated it with a little bit of water on my paintbrush there. And then I, at this point, thought I was going to just scrap the whole thing and start a new project. So I turned the camera off, but then I thought, no, I'm going to keep going. So I added some more embossing powder, which is what I was showing you in the beginning of this clip. And then I'm adding some more Stabilo Marxol. And this is when I really start to enjoy the piece, because it's very grungy and a little abstract, and I was thinking about putting like focal images and this and that, and it just wasn't working because I wasn't letting go and letting it like go where it wanted to go. I was trying to force it to be something that it didn't want to be, which sounds a little hokey, but you know, that's how I was feeling. So then I thought, you know what? I'm not going to put anything on top. I'm going to add some stitches around the edge, throw on some of my favorite Wow Studio chipboard confetti stars, and call it a day for this piece. And I really ended up liking it once I decided that I didn't need to add anything on top. It's delightfully grungy and it's sparkly, and yeah, so that's it for my project today. It's a little bit bigger than ATC size because it was supposed to be a backer for an ATC. And hopefully you can see from these still photos how shiny some of that embossing powder is and the grunginess of it. Yeah, so if you want to play along with us, we have a Facebook group, we have an Instagram page, and you can also link up to DeeDee's blog. If you make a project, share your project on Facebook or Instagram, tag us, hashtag our mixed media moods. We would love it if you played along. And thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye-bye.